Our top story tonight is the infighting over who will be asked to serve in the new Trump cabinet. And sources telling us that Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is the source of some of the friction. Our next story is about someone who's already gotten the call to serve, Steve Bannon, the newly named chief strategist and senior counsel to the president. Bannon, you'll recall, was Donald Trump's campaign CEO. Before that, he ran Breitbart.com website and has been accused of using the site to essentially mainstream white nationalism. In a moment, Glenn Beck, a conservative critic of the Bannon appointment, but first, a Democratic voice, Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid, who spoke out sharply today. CNN's Jeff Zeleny joins us now with that. Reid certainly didn't hold back today. He actually was just speaking on the Senate floor. Specifically, what did he have to say?
Anderson, it was Senator Reid's first speech on the Senate floor since Donald Trump was elected a week ago tonight. How so much time seems to have gone by, but Senator Reid wanted to bring it back to the very beginning here. He called on Donald Trump to get rid of Steve Bannon. He said he has no place just being steps away from the Oval Office. But then he turned this Senate floor speech into a personal speech, and he explained why he said children are terrified.
But on Wednesday, a 7th grade girl awoke feeling frightened to be a woman of color in America because Donald Trump was president-elect. If we ignore her voice and other voices, this 7th grader will be left to conclude that we as a nation find her fear acceptable. Healing the wounds he inflicted will take more than words. Talk is cheap and tweets are cheaper. Healing the wounds is going to take action. But so far, Mr. President, rather than healing these wounds, Trump's actions have deepened them. In one of his very first, if not his first official act, he appointed a man seen as a champion of white supremacy as a #1 strategist in the White House. #1. Everybody else under him.
Anderson, he also called on Donald Trump to rise to the dignity of the Oval Office and tell the country that he is going to be a unifier there in very stark language that we seldom hear on the floor of the U.S. Senate.
Jeff, I mean, obviously, President-elect Trump doesn't have to run Bannon's appointment by Congress. So what is Harry Reid's endgame here? Does he really think Trump's going to listen to him?
Listen, Harry Reid's been in this town a very long time. He knows that the president-elect is not going to listen to him. What Senator Reid is up to, I believe, is trying to send a message to Democrats that it is okay, in fact, proper to fight Donald Trump, to push back on these things. There's a lot of consternation among Democrats I'm talking to here in Washington and elsewhere that President Obama, his tone has been too measured, that Hillary Clinton said, give him a chance. Many Democrats want to hear these fighting words. Harry Reid is taking his leave from the Capitol. He will never have to work with this president. That's why he is trying to leave with these fighting words here. It was really a message and a clarion call to other Democrats.
All right, Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, thanks very much. Our next guest has this to say about Steve Bannon, quote, he's a nightmare, and he's now the chief advisor to the President of the United States. Nationally syndicated radio host Glenn Beck is founder of The Blaze. He joins us. Now, Glenn, great to have you on the program.
Thank you, Anderson.
Before this election, obviously, you made it clear you were not a Trump supporter. You were out there campaigning. The first time you'd ever actually campaigned for a candidate, I think, for Ted Cruz, who actually visited Donald Trump today, I'm told, at Trump Tower. Late last week, you said that President Trump deserves a chance and that you're going to stand with him. Has something changed in your mind, or are you saying that as President-elect, he deserves that chance?
We have two responsibilities when it comes to an election as citizens. We have the responsibility to vote and then to honor that vote, even if we disagree with it. That doesn't mean that we blindly follow. It just means we can't afford the president to fail. We can't afford any president to fail. It's getting worse and worse. And Anderson, you and I have talked several times. I am concerned about the tenor of the nation, and especially when it comes to the press on this particular issue when it comes to Bannon. The alt-right is real, and it's maybe, I don't even know, maybe 1%, 3% of the Trump vote. So we're talking anywhere between 300,000 people to 1.5 million people, maybe. That's a lot of people, but it is not the Trump crowd.
Right.
They are being influenced without knowing it, and for the media, who is distrusted on both sides, but mainly on the right, to be talking about Bannon and to be talking about the alt-right, I really truly fear that this is going to be something that they don't listen to and they don't hear the warning. In fact, they dismiss it. So I want to be really careful on what is said, because this needs to be heard.
Well, let's talk about the alt-right and how you see them. Because, look, a lot of conservatives, when they hear particularly, folks on CNN or elsewhere, or anybody talking about the alt-right, an understandable inclination is to believe, well, look, you're trying to brand all conservatives as being far-right, alt-right, bigoted, racist, and that's certainly obviously that's certainly not the case. So
correct.
To
and
you,
it's the mistake that I made by throwing around the word Marxist. There are Marxists, and there are people that are socialists, but the label of Marxist takes on a whole new meaning. Even socialist for a while took on a whole new meaning. Now that's okay. I made this mistake and nobody on the right or nobody on the left would listen. So let's not make this mistake, and I don't want to be a part of that mistake. I want to make sure that everybody understands that the alt-right is real. It is truly terrifying, in my opinion. Anything that I would say about Bannon.
Explain to people.
Anything I would say about Bannon is. Okay, let me do this. I just wrote a couple of notes down because I want to say them exactly right. I want to quote. Bannon said that Breitbart is a platform for the alt-right. This is 2016. He did an interview with Sarah Posner. He described Breitbart as a platform, this is a quote, of the alt-right. The next thing that happened is Breitbart told the right what the alt-right is and who is the center of alt-right thought. And they said, in, quote, an establishment conservative guide to the alt-right, under the heading intellectuals, they identified Richard Spencer and Steve Sailer as the intellectual leadership running the websites considered to be the center of alt-right. So let's just follow this. Steve Bannon said in 2016 to the LA Times, "We are the platform giving voice to the alt-right." Then they identified the two leader of the center of thought. I want to give you some of the quotes. This is from Richard Spencer. "Our dream is a new society, an ethno-state that would be the gathering point for all Europeans. It would be a new society based on very different ideals than, say, the Declaration of Independence." Then in 2013, "Today in the public imagination, ethnic cleansing has been associated with civil war and mass murder. Understandably so, but this does not need to be the case," end quote. He then later went on with Salon, where he was talking about the government, partnering with the government for sterilization of races. And he said, look, this is a quote, "That way you could still enjoy sex. It's not like you're ruining their life," end quote. That's the first guy that Steve Bannon identified as the center of the alt-right that he gave Breitbart a platform to. The second guy, after Katrina, Steve Sailer, said, quote, "Look, let the good times roll is especially a risky message for African Americans. The plain fact is that they tend to possess poorer native judgment than members of better educated groups. Thus, they need stricter moral guidance from society," end quote. This is, I do not believe that Donald Trump is a member of the alt-right. I don't believe he believes any of this. I don't even think that Donald Trump is a racist. He's many things, but I don't think he's a racist. Steve Bannon, I don't know him. I know several people that work for him. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. But Anderson, here's the real problem. The media doesn't have, look, I don't have credibility with your viewers. And I know that because I made mistakes. So the media doesn't have credibility. The media, I just saw a new study today, said 5% of the people who voted for Donald Trump said there were some disturbing things said in the media, but they didn't believe them. Right. And if they would have believed them, they would have voted for Hillary Clinton or against Donald Trump. We have this lack of transparency, honesty, integrity. And this message about the alt-right must be heard by the conservatives. They must take it seriously, separate and apart from any kind of politics.
We're going to take a break. I want to talk to you more about this in depth when we come back. We'll take a short break. More with Glenn Beck.
Sure.
We're back talking with the Blaze's Glenn Beck about Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, and the alt-right. You know, Newt Gingrich said, I think it was over the weekend, that just because, you know, Bannon may have published some articles with provocative headlines or controversial headlines, that doesn't mean that he agrees with everything in those articles or in those headlines. You know, people, as we all know, websites publish stuff for clickbait to get people to click on it. Can you draw a clear line between Steve Bannon and, you know, white nationalists and white supremacists?
Just according to the LA Times, his quote is, Breitbart is a platform for the alt-right. Then Breitbart describes who the center of thought is, and they are white nationalists. They're spooky guys. I don't want to speculate beyond that. Right. Because I don't know firsthand. I can only take him at his word. And Anderson, I mean, honestly, there will be people that will be tonight mad at you because you've put me on and you are normalizing me. I've seen this, on my Facebook posts. The media should stop normalizing Glenn Beck. Okay. They're mad at you for that, but how could we... I'm not a white nationalist. I'm a guy with a strong political opinion, but I'm not a white nationalist. Here's a guy who is taking his platform and saying, I'm going to give the alt-right a voice in this country. Anderson, I would never do that. You would never do that. CNN would never do that. We would never do that, ever. No responsible person would.
So, I mean, Donald Trump has said, look, on the campaign trail, his daughter is Jewish. She converted to Judaism when she married Jared Kushner, that his grandkids are Jewish, their children. The idea being that he would not support somebody who has, anti-Semitic beliefs.
I don't make that claim on Bannon. Let me give you a scenario. I don't know what it is. I really don't. I know that he has said he has made it into a platform for the alt-right, and it has become that. So under his watch, now what he believes, I don't know. He may just think this is a way to appeal. I mean, who's easy to appeal to? Traditionalism, nationalism. Can we get a base that will really go out, 5% that will really be excited about him and really whip people up and use this extra 5% and then don't believe them and want to discard them? Yeah, he could be that kind of guy. People have done that before in history. I think that's just as dangerous because if he doesn't believe it, which I don't think he does. I don't know him, but I didn't think we even had a bunch of white nationalists around anymore, but we do.
Yeah, because that's also the thing that conservatives traditionally and understandably have been upset about when people, it's very easy to label somebody a racist. It's very easy to label somebody anything.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to do that.
Right. What you're saying is you don't want to.
Right.
You don't want to be that person doing that.
And I don't want to do that to even Steve Bannon. I don't know. I do know that he has given a voice and power to that group of people. Why, I don't know. But it's important because you don't empower people like that. You just don't do that. It's not smart.
So are you saying he should
not
be allowed in the White House to be an advisor, a top advisor, one of the most powerful advisors to the president, or that Donald Trump needs to come forward and state very clearly where he stands? What do you...
Oh, I think he's already stated very clearly where he stands. He doesn't... I don't know if anybody... I mean, look, Anderson, the word racism has been thrown around and racist so much to good, decent people that aren't racist. They're just not. And please... I know I'm the most imperfect messenger to bring this to you, but the word has been thrown around about everyone. And so it doesn't mean anything anymore. And the problem is when you throw a word around like that all the time, then you begin to dismiss the actual racists. And we have to have a discussion, aside from politics, about this small group of people and how this this European and really pro-Russian nationalism is seeping into our country. It's very disturbing.
And you're
this
concerned,
is a European style.
You're concerned it is going to become, I mean, we just showed Harry Reid there on the floor. You're concerned it is just going to be seen as, okay, this is just, again, one thing, a club being used by one political party against another, and therefore easily dismissed by conservatives and others who, by all logic, should reject this very ideology.
The 99% of those people who voted for Donald Trump are not alt-righters. They are not racist. They've never even heard of the word. I never heard of it until about 8 months ago and started doing my research. Most people don't even think this exists. So when they hear somebody on CNN or a Harry Reid say this, their immediate response is, oh, geez, okay, we're all racist again. And so it's really critical that we don't paint everybody with that brush, including Steve Bannon or Donald Trump, unless you have real evidence. I know we have evidence that he is giving those people voice. He has empowered those people through Breitbart, but that's all we know.
I got to take another break. I'm blowing up my show. Can you stick around for one more block?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. More with Glenn Beck when we come back. And continuing the conversation tonight with the Blaze's Glenn Beck. I wanted to ask you about the fear that some people in America feel tonight and have felt this past week. I think back to when President Obama first got elected, and many, certainly in the media, were following that story very closely. You didn't see a lot of stories on the evening news, the day after President Obama was elected, about half the country who were in mourning or upset or angry or fearful. Which we, the day after this election, I turned on to some television show and they were interviewing a psychiatrist about what to do about the depression and the fear that you now feel. So I preface my question with that, but what do you say to people tonight who, for whatever reason, do fear what will happen next?
I understand. I hear you. I understand. I have felt that way before and didn't feel like anybody was listening to us and taking us seriously.
You felt that way when Obama was elected?
Yeah, I don't think as deeply as people feel that right now, but yeah. We were called people that cling to our God and our guns, and we just felt like, uh-oh, what is this? Now, so I felt that way, and then we were called names, and then we started calling names, and then it just got bad. So I hear you, I understand you, I can relate to how you feel, and part of me feels the same way. And Anderson, I read a story about California saying they wanted to secede from the Union. California and Oregon going around and wanting to secede. And I remember everybody was mocking Texas but Texas has said that since like 1840, so it's nothing new with Texas. But that's what Texas has been saying, and we were mocked for that. Here's what I would really like to get: the balance of power of the House and the Senate, the three branches of government, executive, legislative, and Supreme Court. That's why that balance is so important. That's why people like me, the constitutionalists, have been saying, don't give the president so much power. The president should not be able to make me or you ever worried about what's going to happen in our personal life. He might be able to make us worried about our culture and what is he going to do to our culture. That I understand because of his bully pulpit, to cause this much fear. The balance of power is out. And when the balance of power is right and the government is right-sized, California still can be California. It can be, in my opinion, as crazy as it wants to be. And Texas, in others' opinion, can be as crazy as it wants to be. But we're still brothers in the Union, and we're allowed to be ourselves.
Do you think, from what you've seen so far, I mean, there was a fear early on with conservatives about Donald Trump that he was more practical than ideological, and that he himself talked during the campaign about you know, I can be anybody who I want to be. When I'm down in Palm Beach, I can be one way. In New York City, in a business meeting, I can be in a different way. I'll be a different way in the White House. And things are a negotiation. Is that a concern of you that, I mean, and it's something President Obama said, that he's more practical than he is ideological. Do you think that's true of him, and does that worry you?
No, I would like a practical president, but I would like to be able to have his practicality based on principles and not just who I'm in the room with. And that, you know, that we wait to see that. Hopefully he's a very practical man. You know, I think Selena Zito said it the best. This is the best explanation of what happened last Tuesday I've ever heard, and it was from Selena Zito. And she said, the people like me took him literally, but never seriously. But his supporters took him seriously and not literally. I don't know which way to take him, and only time will tell. Only time will tell.
When you said Celine, for a second, I thought you were going to quote Celine Dion, and then I thought, you know, Glenn.
No.
That's,
no.
How are you possibly going to bring Celine Dion into this?
Yes. I'm not.
Yeah. Glenn Beck, it's always good to talk to you. I really, as you know, I love having you on. So thanks very much, Glenn, and we'll continue this discussion.
Thank you very much. You bet, Anderson.
Up next, President Obama in his last overseas trip, how world leaders view the incoming commander-in-chief when 360 continues.